Let's get to Jordan. Apparently, he's very upset that he's losing his Muslim followers or something because he's constantly fucking chirping at Palestinians saying Israel should give him hell.
I'm joined now by Dr. Jordan Peterson. Jordan, great to have you back on the program. A lot has happened since you were last on just a few weeks ago. I want to start by saying that I'm wrestling with a lot of moral quandaries about this war, and I'm hoping that through our conversation today we might get to at least have some clarity about the moral quandaries and see if we can work out what we should be thinking about this, because I think it's very complicated and it's got to be nuanced, this conversation. Do you feel any moral quandaries about it?
Well, I don't think you can have a war without moral quandary. I mean, a war is the consequence of an unsolvable moral quandary. I can tell you what I think is going on to the degree that you can reduce it to something quickly explicable.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Jordan Peterson, when a trans person exists in fucking Western college. This constitutes the gravest threat to Western civilization of all time. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. Trans students are engaging in the most horrifying, deadly, massacrous ideology of postmodernist neo-Marxism. Jordan Peterson, when Israel has slaughtered fucking 3,000 children in the most expeditious way possible in a matter of 3 weeks, while the moral quandaries are quite difficult to grasp with, the dragon of chaos will come for you if you make a fast assumption on Israel's apartheid regime. Who could say if this apartheid is justifiable or not? The fuck? This dude has a fucking aneurysm when the green M&M is not fuckable any longer. But when it comes to just like talking about, again, an ethnic cleansing campaign that's happening in front of our eyes, that all of the Western leaders are refusing to listen to their fucking listen to their fucking voters on, as there's mass protests happening everywhere demanding ceasefires. He's like, who could tell who's in the right and who's in the wrong? It's complicated.
No, I think Iran is desperate because of the tenuous hold on power that the mullahs now have in Iran, given their own citizens' rebellion. I think they see the Abraham Accords, which were the most significant step forward towards peace in the...
Yeah, totally. That's why October 7 happened also simultaneously. Yeah, no, famously, Palestinian liberation has always reacted really quietly and perfectly fine whenever they get totally cut out of the conversation. Nothing keeps the region safe like allowing Israel to maintain its apartheid regime and basically solidifying the pre-existing partnerships that these Gulf nation states already had as CIA client states with Israel.
In the Middle East for like 75 years, they see the Abraham Accords as an existential threat. This is a last-ditch attempt by the Iranian mullahs to use the Islam against Jews story to prop up their own dismal reign. And so they rattled the chain of their Hamas puppets and said, provoke, and they did. And their hope is that the Israeli response will be so overwhelming that the Arab world turns against them, and maybe even the people who might be inclined to, be swayed by a victim narrative in the West, and that the Abraham Accords of
the victim narrative. I mean, he's having this conversation right now. It's not October 8th. He's having this conversation on October 31st after 4,000 or 3,000 children have been fucking slaughtered. Like, oh, they're gonna, the world will see a victim narrative. What a ridiculous fucking thing to say. The world will see Palestinians. Oh no, the world might see Palestinians as victims when in fact the real victims of society are men that are being told that they can't have sex with women, men that are being rejected when they want to go on dates, women wearing makeup. That's the real blight.
To fall apart, and that'll be the end of that, and that could happen, and I'm hoping it won't, because I think the Abraham Accords were...
I'm hoping it won't.
It's irritating to me, for whatever utility that is that I think I know, insofar as you can know such things, that Saudi Arabia would have signed the Abraham Accords 2 years ago if Biden would have moved a little bit more forthrightly on it. And I think...
Like, you want to know how fucking stupid he is? Saudi Arabia and Israel have already normalized relations in anything but on paper, okay? For years. They have the same regional adversary, Iran. So a person who is so supposedly knowledgeable on the matter should probably know that already.
I see this story of Muslim against Jew being put forward in this propagandistic manner. And I think, well, the Muslim world has to make a choice too, because it doesn't look to me like their proper champions is the government in Iran, you know, and it's not like the Saudis don't have their flaws, and perhaps the rest of the Arab governmental structures, but
He's like, he still can't hand it to the Muslims, dude. He's like, make no mistake, the Muslims are bad. They're bad.
the Islam world should move in the direction of the Abraham Accords. That would be great for everyone. We could have a real peace. We could have something approximating a union of the Abrahamic people, and I think the accord was named extraordinarily well. That's what I think is the fundamental reality of the current situation. It's a propaganda war.
It's so funny. Yeah, man. The greatest threat there is the fucking Gulf nation states at least aesthetically criticizing Israel whenever they engage in yet another fucking pogrom. That's the gravest threat to regional security, and not the fact that Israel has an apartheid state. Israel is an apartheid state. This is inherently a violent position. The maintenance of an apartheid state requires a tremendous amount of violence, increasing violence year over year. Israel is trying to ethnically cleanse the West Bank. Israel is taking over more and more territory in the West Bank. That is the big problem here. That is the big problem morally. That is the big problem from a legal perspective. That is the main problem. That's the only problem, as a matter of fact, because most of this other shit would not occur if Israel did not have an apartheid state. 50 plus years of Israel building settlements in territory that is supposed to be Palestinians and maintaining said settlements is a major problem. It's a major issue. Denying the right to return to Palestinians, 6 million of them are refugees in diaspora, generational refugee status in diaspora. Denying them a right to return to their homes is a major human rights catastrophe.
I'm also more sensitive to any signs of anti-Semitic catastrophe from studying the Holocaust for the length of time that I did. And I've always regarded Jews as the canary in the coal mine. And I think the reason that the Jews are the canary in the coal mine is because they're a successful minority. You know, and if a culture can tolerate a successful minority, it's pretty damn robust and it's not very resentful. And as soon as a culture starts to get resentful, the Jews make an easy target, because they're a minority, and so that's an easy target to begin with, but then they're the minority that has the temerity to be successful. And that really brings the resentful out of the rat holes. And I've seen a rise in anti-Semitism online over the last 3 years.
I hate that, like, he's using real... No, guys, before you say this is actually anti-Semitism, no, this is this is correct. What he's saying is correct. Historically speaking, this is precisely what has happened in times of economic instability. I talked about it yesterday as well. Economic volatility creates a chaotic environment where people immediately look for a villain, and the villain always historically is Jews, okay? He's not wrong on this, but what should perhaps give you a better understanding or reframe your perspective is the fact that this dude who openly repeats neo-Nazi propaganda, claiming that the Great Replacement is happening, claiming that there are there's cultural Marxism occurring in college campuses that is actually rotting the morally superior Western world to its core. These are things that Nazis have said. He has repeated this Nazi propaganda in contemporary society time and time again. That guy is making a correct assessment on anti-Semitism and then literally changing the dynamic and using it. He's weaponizing anti-Semitism to justify Israel's actions.
You know, I was very ill when the Abraham Accords were signed, and I couldn't or hadn't paid much attention. And when I sort of recovered my ability to see again, I saw that this remarkable peace process had taken place, and I could not understand for the life of me why it wasn't trumpeted on the front page of every news.
Yeah, I wonder why, dude. I wonder why a peace process that quite literally, demonstrably caused, at least a little bit, caused the chaos that is unfolding, that played a role in this chaos unfolding. Yeah, just read a fucking newspaper, man. Read an Israeli newspaper, please. Read Haaretz or something.Maybe you will develop a better understanding of what the fuck is going on. But it is a consequence of the apartheid regime and a real refusal to meet the Palestinians as human beings, as equal partners.
But I'm rooting hard for the for the Abraham Accord signees, and I hope they have the courage of their convictions, and I hope they can see that their way forward is the most appropriate way forward for the good of the Muslim world. Or what, are we going to stay in some 14th century conflict between the fundamentalist Muslim world and the Jews? Jesus, that sounds, we've had enough of that, haven't we? You'd think.
14th century fundamentalist Muslim conflict? Bitch, that's your own people, you fucking asshole. What do you mean? Aren't you like a Christian supremacist? 14th century pogroms and shit is still up to the Muslims at that point? Muslims were doing that? You fucking asshole. Another laughably ahistorical, nonsensical fucking take.
I asked Ben Shapiro, what is a proportionate response to what happened on October the 7th? Yeah. And he said there isn't one, that there is no proportionate response, and there shouldn't be. That in itself, I asked Vivek Ramaswamy when I interviewed him at the weekend the same question, and he was basically inferring the same, but he also said that he would happily put the heads of 100 Hamas leaders on stakes along the border as a message to people not to commit this act. I thought that was a sort of medieval barbaric response to medieval barbarism, and that eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is not the solution. I also believe that Israel has a fundamental right not just to defend itself after what happened, but has a duty to protect its people. And it has to take that duty obviously very seriously. But if your mission statement, as they've made clear, is to eliminate Hamas completely, and Hamas live in Gaza surrounded by civilians, among civilians, you can only do that. You can only get rid of Hamas with massive civilian casualties. And that's where I have this moral quandary about how much is too much.
Well,
does Israel get a license to do whatever it wants?
I think Piers Morgan talked to way too many pro-Palestinian voices, bro. I swear to God. Maybe at some point he was like, yeah, no, fuck these guys. This is good for my clout. But he talked to one too many pro-Palestinian activists and speakers, myself included. And now he's like, I'm confused as to what's going on.
Well, I don't think Israel will have a license to do whatever it wants, because what will happen inevitably, and I think if I was an Iranian propagandist, I would be counting on this. Let's imagine that Israel moves against Hamas with its usual effectiveness, and they start winning, in a serious way, and the casualties mount. Well, it's a lot easier to take a victim appreciation stance against a power that's clearly winning. So Israel can't win without accruing losses along the way, because the more they manifest their military superiority, the easier it's going to be for those who cast the Palestinians as victims to gain the moral upper hand.
I can't believe he's using so many fucking different words to basically say that the more Israel kills babies, the more the world is going to get mad at Israel killing children. Okay? The problem is not, of course, Israel killing children. The problem in this circumstance is the world recognizing that Israel's killing children and getting mad at it. Oh no, don't stop the baby murder. It's just that the world might start seeing the baby murder and get mad at it. I am more upset about the optics, the bad optics of the baby murder.
On October the 7th, you tweeted, "Give them hell, Netanyahu, enough is enough," and you got some blowback for that, as everybody
a lot
says anything about this. Were you surprised by the scale of the blowback? Do you wish you'd phrased that tweet differently? Do you have any regrets about it?
Well, Twitter is a very complicated social media platform, and it's been difficult for me to learn how to use it wisely. And I'm not alone in that, because it's difficult to be wise on Twitter. Now, what I'm trying to learn is when a tweet is appropriate and when a long-form commentary is appropriate. And the rule, I think, is something like the higher the stakes, the more likely that the long-form commentary is necessary. And really, it would have been better had because I did release a YouTube video where I explained some of what we already talked about.
I saw it,
and that was received much better, let's put it that way.
Thanks, man. Thanks for explaining your position of give him hell, kill more babies, more baby blood, please.
But it also gave me a chance to elaborate my argument. And so what it highlighted for me, and I felt, I was very taken aback by what happened in Israel. And I was also appalled because in my estimation it was unnecessary. As I said, the Abraham Accords could have been extended earlier. Elon has taken off the character limit, and he's also made it possible to distribute video, and so it no longer has to be a place where impulsive exchanges can occur rapidly, and I'm trying to reconfigure how I use it.
Okay, I can't. I'm. Is there parts of this that get like more interesting? Because like the reality is hearing Jordan Peterson be like, give him hell is not shocking to me at all. That's what I expected from him.